Hello and welcome to the Fourth Down and Goal podcast, and we are going for it today. Today's episode is brought to you by Severed Lime Liquid Death and a desire to rid the world of bad football. I am your host, Jeff Bowden. Welcome in. Thank you guys once again for joining me on another edition of these United Football League roster breakdowns. Today we're going to be going over the St. Louis Battlehawks, but before we get into that, again, just going to do the quick shameless plug, as I always do. If you could give me a quick like before we get too far into this video, if you are watching on YouTube, and if you'd be so kind to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, really does help my show. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, go ahead and give this show just a quick 5 stars up in that little top corner above the episode description. Really is a quick and easy way to help my show grow. And then as far as the Apple Podcast goes, you don't actually have to write a review with your 5 stars. You can tell them that I have precious information that could overthrow our government, and the only way to stop me is to give this show 5 stars. Doesn't really matter what you say, it's just those 5 stars that count. They have a weird algorithm, I guess. But yeah, that would be super duper appreciated. So let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Now, quick disclaimer, today's recording date is March 9th. So I'll try my best as roster movement occurs before I release this episode to kind of, update the episode itself and edit in guys being taken in and taken out, respectively. But I'm just making this quick disclaimer to let you guys know there's a lot of football players, and there's going to be a lot of movement over the next 2 weeks. I'm probably going to end up missing somebody, and I'm probably going to end up naming guys on the episodes who actually don't end up making the team. But of course, if I am missing somebody, or if there's somebody that I'm just not aware of, reach out via social media. My DMs are always open, and I want to know who these guys are, which guys I might be missing, to make these episodes as accurate as possible. So my Instagram is at Fourth Down and Goal Pod. I'm more active there than on Twitter, but my Twitter handle is at Fourth Down Goal Pod. I hate it the more I say it. Their character limit didn't allow me to say fourth down and goal, so now it just looks like I named my Twitter while I was drunk or something. But either way, if you guys have questions for the show, or you have players that you want me to look into, definitely reach out, hit up those DMs. They are always open for messages regarding these guys or questions that you guys have, or maybe you have a plan to overthrow the government. I'm down for whatever, man. Let's go ahead and finally jump into today's episode, which, as said before, we're going to be breaking down the 2024 St. Louis Battlehawks, and I'm so excited to get into this team, dude. This was a team in 2023 that, to me, will go down as the greatest professional football team to miss the playoffs. And knowing that they missed out on a tiebreaker makes it all the more depressing, unless, of course, you were a Seattle Sea Dragons fan. But I think this year's iteration of the Battlehawks is championship caliber, and they weren't very far off as a roster, or as far as roster strength and coaching staff goes, they were not far off last year. Bringing back head coach Anthony Becht, a spring league coach who burst onto the scene last year and clearly knows how to lead a group of men. And isn't it a little poetic justice that the team who knocked them out of the playoffs ends up getting poached by St. Louis in wake of the merger? They acquired almost the entire Seattle Sea Dragons roster, which, as disappointed as we were to see St. Louis miss the playoffs last year, nobody can say that Seattle didn't earn their spot. So adding most of their high-end talent exponentially raises the ceiling for the Battlehawks. Let's go ahead and jump into this quarterback room, starting, of course, with the man, A.J. McCarron, the XFL MVP from last year. And I got to admit, I got a little nervous. When we reached February and Nick Tiano was still QB1 for the Battlehawks. And that's no shot to Tiano. You know, he was good last season when he was asked to step in when McCarron had to sit out with a shoulder injury. But the return of McCarron solidifies the kind of consistency that spring football needs. I'm so stoked to see him return to a team that added weapons on offense and defense. Next up, you got Brandon Silvers, one of the quarterbacks, one of the better quarterbacks to have behind your quarterback one. He has QB1 potential, depending on what team he's on. But honestly, I really like this situation for Brandon Silvers. He's had his good moments, and his career has had its up and downs. But I think this opportunity to just sit for a year behind McCarron and learn and, develop his game that way, I think it's a good thing for him. And I think, if you need him to step in, he can win some games for you. And then you got Manny Wilkins, who I'm pretty sure at this point in time is still on the roster. I'm not even entirely sure, to be completely honest. But regardless, he'll probably end up being QB3. Liquid death. Let's jump over to the running back room now. I think out of all the unproven running backs and running back rooms within the United Football League, this is the one that I feel the best about. Two dudes with a fair amount of NFL experience, and then you got Mateo Durant returning for a second year. He'll have some familiarity with this offense and with this coaching staff. But you got Wayne Gallman coming over after a 4-year stint in the NFL. Saw a decent amount of playing time, especially with the Giants. And then Jacob Sailors, who was on the Bengals practice squad in 2023 and had a really, really great college career. So I'm interested to see who actually ends up being the starter, and what this depth chart ends up looking like, and how they kind of rotate guys in and out of the game as the season progresses. Jumping over to the receivers now, starting with the tight ends. By far the position group on this team that I have the most questions about. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, being under Anthony Beck, a former tight ends coach. I think that'll probably help them out a little bit. But yeah, these guys are just, they're unproven. You got Jake Sutherland coming back for a second year with St. Louis. Saw very limited playing time last year, really nothing to really write home about. And then Kamari Averett had a solid final 2 years of his college career. But overall, a couple guys who, are probably just going to, really the entire tight end room, if I'm being honest, kind of has to prove themselves. And we're just going to have to see who ends up stepping up and how they can contribute to the offense. Now going into the wide receiver room, and I'm going to say this now. I know he got hurt, but the St. Louis Battlehawks got away with highway robbery in the dispersal draft. How Jacour Pearson was not the number one pick and found his way to St. Louis is beyond me, but I could not be happier. Not only that, but they land Blake Jackson, another really great receiver coming over from the Sea Dragons. Pair that with some of these guys coming back for year 2. You got Hakeem Butler, the 6'5" jump ball contested catch specialist, your go-to guy for that type of situation. He can be a little bit hit or miss, but overall, a great 2023 season that he can build off of. You also have Darius Shepard making his return to St. Louis. He was all XFL last year, 519 yards and 6 touchdowns off of 48 receptions, and he was also the special teams player of the year last year. So great to have him back. Stephen Mitchell also coming back. He was a solid depth piece last year, coming back for another round in St. Louis. And then Marcel Aitman, another good depth piece that you can kind of rotate in for different situational purposes. 6'4" and a really good contested ball